Piggy.
Age of Empires 2 is the game that keeps on giving, and that I keep buying. I must have bought it a dozen times by now, sometimes for me and sometimes for friends. I may as well be peddling drugs, given how addictive this game is. Imagine being a game developer in the 90s, working on Age of Empires 2. There's no way you could have known that it would still be popular 20 years on. That those trivial decisions you made back then would dictate the outcomes of millions of matches. Which other games can you think of from the 90s that still have such a large player base? And not only that, a player base that's full of people who weren't even born when the game was first released. It's an incredible game. It caters for so many different casual playstyles, yet also functions as an uber-competitive esports title that's ridiculously complex to master. For me, a large part of the reason I love this game is thanks to its awesome bot support. I don't know what it is about them, but I feel like I've accomplished something by beating them, even at easier settings. And it never grows old, especially with the improved AI featured in the Definitive Edition. They feel truly alive when they build a lumber mill next to my wall as though they're trying to mine around it, or when they block off my approaching army from killing their gold miners, or when they fake a retreat to lure my soldiers into the range of their castles. This edition of the AI doesn't cheat either. If you cut off its gold supply, it runs out of gold. That's satisfying. And yet despite it playing by the rules, it can still outplay me. Which is embarrassing really. I may have played this game for decades, but in a way, I've never really played it. I don't care about the single player campaign at all, and I'm still too scared to play proper multiplayer. My time in the game has mostly been playing cooperatively with friends against numerous numbers and difficulties of enemy AI. Back in 2002, it was one of the games I used to recreate Helm's Deep in, where I deliberately delay my paladin charge so that they arrived just in time to save my sister's town from the enemy swarm. I designed intricate and expansive castle layouts in the editor, then see if I could hold off a superior force from behind the dozens of layers of walls. The game later became a staple at LANs. Some of us would have V1, others V1A, and it would cause untold problems if we tried to get everyone on the same version of the game so that we could start the match. If I'm honest, it wasn't the best game for LANs. It's hard to plan a scenario that caters for such a range of skill levels, including total newbies who have never even played it before. And the games can often span into the hours as a 4v4 on Black Forest reaches a painful stalemate. Then in 2013 I had a group who would play it online. We'd be up against 4 or 5 enemies at once, slowly building up our forces before knocking their towns down one by one. Then, as I went through my 20s, my friends drifted, and LANs became a smaller, more intimate affair. And suddenly the idea of a match of AoE 2 became more viable again as we, all veterans of the game, would face off against harder and harder combinations of enemy AI. On Black Forest, of course. I went through a stage where I tried to unlock all of the achievements, leading to crazy fights against 5, 6 or even 7 enemies at once, which encouraged me to think outside the box and to employ bizarre strategies to give me the edge. But it's only been in the last year with the Definitive Edition that I've actually got good at the game, in part thanks to its excellent tutorials. I've mastered the fast castle, I've learned to use different formations to dodge attacks, I've deliberately countered with trash units to save on precious resources, I've actually dared to play on maps other than Black Forest, I've watched pro matches, and I've researched novel strategies. I even know what T90 farms are. I confess, I feared the game would lose its appeal once I got good at it. Is there any returning to 4v4 Black Forest once I've given someone the Persian douche? Turns out, there is. AoE 2 just gets better and better. That damn Persian douche strategy though. One day, as everybody was joining a lobby, a random person joined and chose to be on the enemy team. We thought nothing more of it until suddenly my sister was moaning about how it's happening to her again. And when I looked across at her, her base was in ruins. The Persian douche is where you quickly send your villagers to the enemy base and construct a town centre right next to theirs. Persians get a stronger town centre, which means they'll win in a fair fight. It's a cheap way of beating most players in a 1v1, but the strat can scale all the way up until it's challenging even the best of players. There are ways of dealing with it, which my friends and I practiced so that we would never get caught out by it again. Even this training led to some fun times, like when we decided to troll the AI by ganging up on them, using the Persian douche to great effect against the toughest difficulty level. They didn't stand a chance. Age of Empires 2, the game that keeps on giving. I gave the original a go again the other day, just to see what it was like. It was rubbish. The AI micromanaged monks and wrecked me, and the general gameplay felt so basic and primitive compared to the sequel. And to think, I didn't used to like Age of Empires 2. Before Lord of the Rings, I saw it as an overly complicated version of Command & Conquer. But times change, and so have I. Now I see Command & Conquer as a simple version of AoE 2. Unpopular opinion, I didn't used to like the music, and the names of the tracks were stupid. And I mean really stupid. Shamburger. Smells like crickets, tastes like chicken. Neep ninny bod. But it's amazing what Stockholm Syndrome can do, and after having heard the same songs played in the same order literally hundreds of times, I grew to love each and every track in the game, even the expansions. Which was why I was so sad that the order was shuffled around for the definitive edition. It was jarring to hear the same tracks, but in the wrong order and with different instruments. In some bits, the tracks themselves had been changed, and with new bits added. Blasphemy! But Stockholm Syndrome struck again, and I'm already growing to like the new soundtrack, even if I still prefer the original version of Taser. It's weird that Age of Empires 3 never took off. It made some questionable decisions regarding the competitive side of the game, but it's not like I cared about that at the time. The game even had the prettiest water ever, so I'm not sure why I didn't give it more of a chance. There's just something more timeless and comforting about a fixed isometric perspective that 3D has yet to match. Which is why I worry for Age of Empires 4. Don't get me wrong, I want to like it, and it looks great, but even if it's better than I could have hoped for, how could it be better than Age of Empires 2? For the time being, I'll continue playing the definitive edition, with my friends, against brainless AI. After years of faithfully picking Teutons, I'm now really enjoying playing as random civilizations every time. I enjoy having to think on the spot when they do stuff in a different way, or when they have different perks from what I'm used to. I enjoy playing as the Melee because of their fast-moving Karambit warriors, which are great for trolling enemy trade cards. And I've even grown to like the Goths. Their inability to build stone walls made them the butt of so many land jokes back in the day, but their units are cheap and the Huskarl warriors are almost immune to arrows, which is all sorts of perks. And the Britons are awesome because they all sound like that Blue Peter presenter.
All them.
But who knows what the future holds, and how my experience of Age of Empires will change. Maybe, one day, I'll play with Fog of War, or may even dabble with the matchmaking feature. Who knows? Give it another 20 years, and I might be ready.
They still have 3 castles, I think. In the back.
Yeah, they did. I'm surprised they... I always think they throw it in a bit early.
They called it a little early, yeah.
I prefer them to fight to the bitter end.